Within the cold, white walls of a small monastery on the outskirts of Greece, prayers echoed faithfully every day. Yet hidden among the hymns, something had begun to rot. 8 people had died. No signs of struggle, no cries for help. Each death believed to be the will of God. The perpetrator was not a figure lurking in shadows. She walked among them in broad daylight, clothed in pure white robes, a rosary in her hand. A symbol of faith, a nightmare disguised as a saint. Her name was Mariam Solicitis. She taught the world a chilling lesson. Not every angel has wings. Some conceal claws beneath white garments. Mariam Solicitis, born Mariam Solicitis in 1883, came from a poverty-stricken village in Greece. A full meal was a luxury. From a young age, Marina understood that weakness meant death. While other children dreamed of innocence, Marina nurtured something different. Power. No one offered her hope, so she forged her own ambition to seize life with her own hands at any cost. At 15, she decided, if life was a chessboard, she would not be a pawn. She would control the board. Her path began in the church. Entering the monastery, Marina, now known as Mariam, donned her pure white habit. She appeared daily in the chapel, head bowed, eyes solemn. The congregation adored her. They trusted her. But Mariam didn't seek love. She sought dominion. Every act of charity, every whispered prayer, was a calculated brick in the fortress she built around herself. She waited, like a patient hunter in tall grass, for the flock to wander closer. They trusted. They donated their wealth. They surrendered their souls. And Mariam? She simply waited for the right moment to harvest. When the time came, Mariam moved quietly. She introduced soul-cleansing rituals, private ceremonies where victims drank consecrated wine she personally prepared. Tests later revealed traces of strychnine, a powerful poison. Just a few milligrams were enough to cause violent convulsions, respiratory failure, and death within 2 hours. Her victims never suspected a thing. They died peacefully, in the arms of the one they trusted most. Afterward, Mariam graciously organized funerals, even covering costs. In return, she secured inheritances, donations, property deeds, all signed under duress or false pretense. No screams, no struggles, just silent deaths, wrapped in candlelight and whispered prayers. The first deaths went unnoticed. Maria Papadopoulos, a 68-year-old widow. Georgios Manolis, a retired merchant. Both passed away quietly after private blessings with Mariam. No suspicion, only sorrow, only hymns. Mariam Solicitis stood amid the mourning crowds, her hands clasped in prayer. A portrait of piety, masking a predator's patience. But Mariam's hunger grew. She expanded her reach. No longer satisfied with isolated deaths, she began orchestrating group tragedies. A family of 3 dead within a week. Young devotees left partially paralyzed after retreats, their symptoms brushed aside. Mariam wept with them, prayed over them, mourned with them. And in the spaces between her prayers, the Reaper worked, silent and relentless. Death was no longer rare. It became a dark pulse, steady and inescapable, like the mournful toll of a funeral bell at dawn. Yet no deception lasts forever. By November 1928, an alarming spike in deaths around Mariam's monastery caught the attention of health officials. Tests on leftover sacramental wine revealed the presence of strychnine and traces of atropine, another toxic substance. Financial records showed disturbing patterns, and numerous victims changed their wills just days before death. All assets were redirected to Mariam or the monastery. Eyewitness reports painted a damning picture. A Mariam insisted on private blessings. A survivors reported feeling dizzy or fatigued after drinking her wine. On December 17, 1928, police raided the monastery. Inside Mariam's private quarters, they found unlabeled bottles containing toxic substances, a ledger matching donations to the names of the deceased. Mariam was arrested without resistance. During her first interrogation, she spoke only once. "Everything I did was for salvation." Her case was swiftly forwarded to the Supreme Court of Greece, with charges of mass murder, fraud, and religious abuse. Mariam Solicitis was sentenced to death in 1929. But before her execution could be carried out, she died alone in her cell. The official cause: heart failure. The monastery was permanently closed. Its walls crumbled, its windows shattered, and from its hollowed halls, people whispered of prayers that never reached heaven. Locals spoke of a white figure glimpsed through broken windows, of mournful prayers carried on the cold wind. Mariam left behind more than graves. She left behind a brutal, enduring truth. The most ruthless killers do not always wear the faces of demons. Sometimes they come dressed as saviors. And the most terrifying part is that we invite them in.